Greetings. Now is the time and place for a meeting of the Beaverton Planning Commission. For the record, I will do roll call to verify which commission members are participating this evening. Let the record show we have Commissioner Adams, Commissioner Lawler, Commissioner Nye, and Commissioner Winter. Let the record show that Commissioners Glenwinkle and Ellis are absent and excused. So we are now at commission communications. Commissioners, are there any communications? I don't see any, so we will move on to staff communications. Staff?
Good evening, Chair McCann. I'm Honest Latinsky, the Planning Division Manager for Beaverton in the Community Development Department. I do have some comments tonight. This is it's a huge milestone for the Cooper Mountain Community Plan, the public hearing that's being held tonight. And I do want to take the opportunity to recognize the group of people who have contributed to this effort over time, because it's a really impressive array of folks. Planning Commission, you have held many, many work sessions and shaped the project since the beginning over 4 years ago. City Council has likewise provided robust guidance and direction for development of key policies and project decisions. We have partner organizations here tonight that have played a really important role in this planning process as well. Staff from CWS, THPRD, Washington County, and others have shared analysis and feedback and worked really closely with Beaverton staff to create a plan that's largely aligned across a diverse array of organizational missions, strategic plans, and areas of interest. On the Beaverton staff side, I have very deep admiration for the lead planning team represented here tonight, as well as alumni of this group who have moved on to other roles and organizations. But this project has truly been the product of almost every city department, with extraordinary partnership from the city attorney's office and public works engineers for transportation, stormwater, sewer, and water service specialties. I also want to recognize the property owners, residents, and other community members from a wide variety of backgrounds and areas of interest that have taken time to review project materials that were sometimes quite lengthy and very technical. They attended meetings, they wrote letters, they provided testimony. Some of them are here tonight. I have to say that this scrutiny and feedback has made for a better plan that more fully reflects the complex range of aspirations and concerns that the Cooper Mountain Community Plan touches on. So to all of you, a huge thank you. And that is the end of my staff comments for this evening.
All right, thank you. The only item on the agenda is the application for LU 2024-00682, the Cooper Mountain Community Plan. Case file number is CPMA 4-2024-00679, TA 4-2024-00680, and ZMA 4-2024-00681. The Planning Commission's decision to recommend adoption of a comprehensive plan amendment, zoning map amendment, and text amendment must be based on the consideration of the statewide planning goals and administrative rules adopted under ORS Chapter 197, the applicable federal or state statutes or rules, the applicable plans and rules adopted by Metro, and the city's comprehensive plan and development code, including criteria in comprehensive plan section 1.5.1 for the CPA, development code section 40.97.15 for the ZMA, development code section 40.85.15 for the text amendment. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward these approval criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or development code that the speaker believes to apply to the application. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to allow the Planning Commission and other interested parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Anyone who submits written comments or gives oral testimony has standing to appeal this decision. State and local law require commissioners to make certain disclosures. To these ends, the following question will be asked. Does any commissioner have a potential or actual conflict of interest? Commissioner Adams?
No.
Commissioner Nye?
No, I don't.
Commissioner Lawler?
I do not.
Commissioner Winter?
No.
I would like to state that my firm did work on early versions of the plan. However, they are not involved in any of the text amendments or anything that we are reviewing today. And I personally did not work on anything related to this plan. So I don't think that it affects my ability to review it. So does any member of the audience wish to challenge the right of any commissioner to participate in this hearing? Oh, I see a raised hand, staff. I apologize if I get the, or sorry, Sarah. Do we have, does staff wish to speak? I'm seeing raised
It
hands.
looks like we have somebody from the public that would like to question. Is that, are they?
Yeah, I think so. So I see Peterson.
My name is Austin Peterson, and I've just raised my hand to get myself in queue for public testimony, not specifically by way of challenging whether or not there's anyone that would need to recuse themselves from this this moment. So quite simply, just want to be in line for the testimony portion.
Okay, thank you. We will get there eventually. All right. Okay. So I don't see anyone else. I guess we'll say let the record show there was no actual response to that. The order of the public hearing tonight will be as follows. City staff will give a presentation followed by questions of staff. Then members of the public in support of the application can speak for up to 5 minutes each. Then members of the public opposed to the application can speak for up to 5 minutes each. Then members of the public who are neither in support nor opposed will then have 5 minutes to speak. The Planning Commission will hear any final comments from staff. So let us now begin with the staff presentation.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening, Commissioners and Chair McCann. My name is Rob Zeller. I am a senior planner with the city. I am joined this evening by Brian Martin, Alyssa Maxwell, Anna Slatinsky, Jana Fox, Brittany Gata, Lauren Russell, and Kara Hall, all of whom may participate in the discussion at the end of the presentation. I'm here today to present amendments that would implement the Cooper Mountain Community Plan. To start, I will briefly present the project overview. I will then present amendments to the comprehensive plan, zoning map, and development code in that order. In addition to the staff report that you received on October 2nd, several supplemental memos have been added to the materials for this evening. Exhibit 30 is a response from city staff to testimony provided by Washington County in Exhibit 29.3. Exhibit 33 is a letter of support from Metro that indicates that the proposed amendments are consistent with Metro's Urban Growth Management Functional Plan, as well as Metro's Regional Transportation Functional Plan. And exhibits 32 and 34 through 37 include additional public testimony. Exhibit 37 is in the process of being uploaded any moment if it's not there already. After I present the amendments, I will then end with the approval criteria for each application and a staff recommendation to recommend approval of the 3 amendments to City Council. This project started in 2019 after Metro approved the city's request to expand the urban growth boundary to bring land inside the boundary to help meet significant housing needs for the city and region. This map shows the 1,200-acre project area. This area is anticipated to provide about 5,000 homes, which includes a mix of single attached homes, middle housing, and multi-dwellings. Throughout the entire project, a racial equity framework was used to guide decision-making from start to finish. And that brings us to the first application, Comprehensive Plan Amendments. The Comprehensive Plan is a legal document that guides Beaverton's future growth and development over the next 20 years. The proposed amendments include updates to volumes 1, 3, 4, and 5. On the following slides, I will walk through an overview of the proposed amendments to each volume. I will start with Volume 5, Community Plans, since it provides the policy framework for amendments that will implement the community plan. The community plan is Exhibit 1 in your packet and includes 8 project goals, which provide regulatory guidance for updates to the zoning map and development code that will be discussed later. The goals address topics such as equitable outcomes, a variety of new housing, natural resource protections, and access to safe, convenient transportation options and commercial uses near where people live. The community plan also includes a natural resources report that identifies significant wetlands, streams, riparian areas, and upland habitat, and an infrastructure funding plan that shows one way to fund infrastructure, but the city may consider additional options in the future. The proposed amendments update the city's land use map to include 3 new land use designations. The land use map tells us which goals and policies apply in an area and which implementing zoning districts can be applied within each designation. For the Cooper Mountain commercial designation in red, the only implementing zone is Cooper Mountain Community Service. This designation is less flexible because its location is important to support the long-term viability of commercial uses in the area. The Cooper Mountain Mixed Use Corridor designation in purple allows 3 implementing zoning districts to be applied. This allows property owners flexibility with how those 3 zones could be applied on their property given site conditions and market conditions. And for the Cooper Mountain Residential designation in yellow, the implementing zone is Cooper Mountain Residential Mixed, which is intended for a mix of detached and attached housing. The proposed amendments include updates to other chapters in Volume 1 of the Comprehensive Plan. Proposed changes to Chapter 3 add new policies for the 3 proposed Cooper Mountain land use designations, and proposed changes to Chapters 1 and 5 are minor, essentially updating noticing requirements and references to other plans. Proposed updates to Chapter 6 include new maps and policies that implement transportation goals. Updates to Chapter 7 generally add Cooper-specific policies that focus on natural resource protections and wildlife habitat. And proposed updates to Chapter 8 address landslide hazard risks. The proposed amendments also update the city's Transportation System Plan, also known as the TSP. The functional classification map for Cooper Mountain includes existing and proposed arterials, collectors, and neighborhood routes for the plan area. Local roads are not pictured here since their location is worked out at the time of development. This map was essential in assigning land use designations in key areas since the intent was to encourage development and land use patterns that support a variety of transportation options, including future transit service in the area. Other updates to the TSP include updating Chapters 2 and 4 in Volume 4 to match updates in Volume 1. In addition, the proposed amendments add a list of future Cooper Mountain projects that would be added to the city's TSP and identify transportation needs for the Cooper Mountain Community Plan area. That concludes updates to the comprehensive plan and brings us to the second application, zoning map amendments. The zoning map tells us what development rules, such as allowed uses, building heights, and setbacks, are applied to development inside that zone. 3 zones, Cooper Mountain Community Service, Cooper Mountain High Density Residential, and Cooper Mountain Multi-Dwelling Residential, are primarily intended for multi-dwellings and middle housing. These are the red, purple, and orange zones on the map. These zones are generally intended they're adjacent to they're adjacent to proposed parks to ensure equitable access to these parks for people that plan to live in or visit the area. And the Cooper Mountain Residential Mixed Zone, this is marked in yellow on the map, is intended for a mix of single detached dwellings, middle housing, 5-plexes, and 6-plexes. This zone also allows opportunities for small-scale commercial uses so that residents can walk to a corner store to buy food or a cup of coffee. Furthermore, 2 of the zones are intended to be mixed-use zones. The Cooper Mountain Community Service Zone, again, this is red on the map, requires some commercial square footage with developments, and the Cooper Mountain High Density Residential Zone, this is purple, allows commercial but does not require it. That wraps up zoning map amendments and brings us to the text amendments section, which essentially means development code updates. In the interest of time, I will focus on code updates unique to the Cooper Mountain Community Plan area. However, in some cases, other code sections were updated to facilitate this work, and those changes apply citywide. The proposed code requires housing variety and integration in the CMRM zoning district for developments 3 acres and larger to help create more inclusive neighborhoods. It also provides a PUD option for those that desire more flexibility, and it includes design requirements for 5 and 6 plexes. The proposed code includes a resource overlay that designates areas where development is more limited to protect natural resources. The rules promote protection of these areas and tree planting within them. 3 layers are used to identify the resource overlay: riparian habitat, riparian upland habitat, and upland forest. The rules apply to all of these areas. In addition to city rules, Clean Water Services also has rules for wetlands and stream buffers that will apply in the blue areas on the map. On this slide, we are looking at an example of a lot with resource overlay coverage that is being divided for development to build housing. The gray area represents land inside the resource overlay. During a land division, 80% of the resource overlay will be required to be protected from disturbance and separated into a tract. The remaining 20% can be used for land development if mitigation planting is provided. The mitigation planting can occur within the protected area of the overlay to enhance streams and buffer areas. And this 20% is where the applicant can build roads and housing. The proposed amendments also regulate tree removal to help retain tree canopy in the future while allowing property owners to remove some trees. The tree code for Cooper Mountain proposes rules that aim to preserve existing trees, expand the tree canopy to reach a 40% tree canopy target in the plan area outside the nature park, and provide some development flexibility on sites with a lot of trees. These rules are in 2 categories: tree preservation standards and tree canopy standards, which only apply at the time of initial development. When the code mentions tree preservation, it refers to retaining existing trees and tree canopy on the site. The minimum tree preservation percentages are 65% of existing tree canopy within the resource overlay and 40% of existing tree canopy outside the resource overlay. Whereas tree preservation refers to retaining existing trees on the site, minimum tree canopy standards focus on planting requirements to ensure the site has sufficient tree canopy, either now or in the future. The proposed tree code requires planting to reach 65% tree canopy inside the resource overlay. That concludes a review of the proposed amendments and brings us to the approval criteria and staff recommendation. To recommend approval of the amendments discussed this evening, the Planning Commission must consider if the amendments comply with all relevant approval criteria in the Comprehensive Plan and Development Code. The approval criteria generally focuses on state, metro, and city requirements. A reminder that the staff report includes letters from Metro that express support for the city's approach to natural resources protections, transportation, and other relevant Metro requirements. That concludes the presentation. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission conduct the public hearing and receive all public testimony relating to the proposal. Considering the public testimony and the facts and findings presented in the staff report, deliberate on policy issues and other issues identified by the Commission or the public, and then recommend approval of the 3 applications to the City Council with amendments as needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions of staff with regard to the proposed application? Commissioner Nye.
I had just a couple suggested tweaks to the code that I wanted to ask your opinion about. One being the maximum size of the small commercial. Looking around at a lot of the small commercial in my neighborhood, it seemed like a size that would support things like a coffee shop would be maybe up to 1,800 square feet instead of the 1,500 square feet. So that was my one of my questions. Would staff support a change if the commission wanted that kind of change?
Brian, I know you were looking into that. Do you mind taking that one?
Sure thing. Thanks, Commissioner Nye. The small scale commercial provisions that allow these certain small scale commercial uses in the Cooper Mountain residential mixed neighborhood are a little bit of an experiment. When we were trying to draft this idea and we were looking around for other examples in other cities and their codes, we didn't find much. There's not a lot of folks trying this method. Although we're really excited about it because it could potentially put goods and services and dining options and things closer to where people live. The thrust behind the limitation on size is really just to limit the potential impact of maybe car trips to the area or noise to the area, and just the basic intensity of the uses. And it's also part of the package of basically trying to fit these businesses in the same box or building bulk as some of the other like residential units that are in the area. That said, there's no like science behind 1,500 square feet. It's maybe 2/3 of your average planned pantry. So it's like big enough to do something with, but small, like smaller than other commercial uses. So it really depends on how bold the commission wants the experiment to be. If that extra 300 square feet you think will provide more flexibility and make it work better, it's worth a shot. If you want to keep it at 1,500 and see what happens and adjust later, that's kind of your discretion. So I think we could support either direction.
I would think that a little bit additional flexibility might be more appealing to some businesses and kind of achieve what you want to do. And of course, if they don't want to hit the max, they don't have to, right? Like we're talking about a maximum, not a minimum. So you certainly could have smaller operations that use a smaller square footage. And at least, Commissioner Nye has lots of experience in this arena. So, she thinks maybe 1,800 might be better to give people kind of make the numbers work for a retail establishment. Maybe that's a good adjustment. So I'm supportive of your suggestion.
And then I had one other suggestion that I talked to staff about, and maybe they've had time to think about it, related to the small scale commercial, the hours of operation limitations. What's in there right now, as far as 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., no activities, I think matches our general code requirements. But what got me thinking about it was the fact that there are no conditional use options to extend the hours of operation unless you're a child care facility. And going back to the idea of it, potentially being a coffee shop, 7 a.m. is a little bit of a late start for a lot of coffee shops. So I wanted it to, but I understand the intent of not encouraging alcohol-based businesses to be open late in a neighborhood. So my thought was for the net exception one was to change the sentence to read, except for child care facilities, hours of operation may not be extended after 10 p.m. through conditional use processes. I don't know if staff has had any time to think about those changes. So essentially allowing people to open earlier, but not later. And I don't know if we need to make an earlier bar.
Commissioner, again, my name is Brian Martin. I'm the Long Range Planning Manager. I forgot to say that the first time. I'm interested in what the other commissioners had to say. I love coffee, and I get up early. So if you think it's going to work better, where people can kind of get in their businesses and get ready sooner through a conditional use process, talk to us. We've got some language drafted that might work for you. I agree that past 10 p.m. in a residential context might be kind of challenging, which is kind of the impetus for writing this in the first place. So let us know what you think. We can help you get there and get the motion correct.
Do you have other questions, Commissioner Nye?
I have one other code change I wanted to run by staff in the commission. And it's related to, it's kind of in the open, I believe it's the open space chapter, where we allow indoor community rooms to count towards the open space requirements. And the suggestion in the code was that it be 12 feet floor to floor. And I wanted to recommend we change that to 11 feet floor to floor, essentially to make it affordable for projects that are using wood frame construction, which the majority of the projects up on Cooper Mountain would be in the wood frame category. 11 feet floor to floor allows a standard 10-foot stud, and then 1 foot of structure. And that is significantly more affordable than 11 feet of stud, which is actually pretty hard structurally to make happen. So just 1 foot shorter in the ceiling height.
We can look into that.
And that's all I have. Okay.
Just for reference, the 11-foot, 12-foot, 11-foot provision is in, I think, 60.05.25 3J2. If you're trying to follow along at home, 60.05.25 3J2.
Okay. Are there other commissioners who have questions for staff? I am not seeing any. So I think we can move on to public testimony. So we're now at the public testimony portion of our meeting. We will call for testimony in groups, starting with those in favor of the application, then those in opposition to the application, then those who are neither in favor nor in opposition. So now is the time for testimony in favor of the application. For those viewing via Zoom webinar, please communicate by using the raised hand feature in your Zoom menu bar. If calling in, press *9 to alert the chair that you would like to speak. So the commission calls John Nichols to speak. Please state your name and address for the record.
I apologize. I should not have raised my hand so early. I am actually a voice in opposition.
Okay. Why don't you put your hand down for a minute, sir, and we will see if there's anyone who'd like to speak in favor. I see a raised hand for, excuse me if I say this wrong, Sivan Ben David.
Hi, thank you so much. First off, thank you guys so much for the thoughtful plan and layout. I guess I think this is the right one, but I have more, not necessarily in opposition or in favor, but just a potential recommendation or a request. And I'm so happy that you guys have that, especially that piece about the trees, and that there's really going to be that attempt to keep the nature and the beauty of this area present. As someone who lives in the neighborhood and who really values the quiet, the nature, the trees, I don't know if there's any possibility or discussion on whether there can be recommendations that whenever possible, when new housing is going to be abutting some of the current homes in Murray Hills or otherwise, if any trees are abutting the property line or the fence, that those trees can be kept intact or favored, or if there's can be at least a percentage of those that would be required to kind of be kept in place in order to build good community, good neighborhoods, and kind of also go in line with the trees that you guys are anyway kind of promoting the developers to be sustaining.
Thank you for your comment. Before I let you go, can you please just for the record state your name and address so we have that?
Of course. My name is Sivan Ben David, and I live over on Meadowlark Lane, 11338.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of course.
Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the application? I am not seeing anyone. So now is the time for public testimony in opposition to the application. Again, for those viewing via Zoom webinar, please communicate by using the raise hand feature in your Zoom menu bar. If calling in, press *9 to alert the chair that you would like to speak. The commission calls Peterson to speak. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, greetings. Good evening, everyone. I'm Austin Peterson at 17765 Southwest Cooper Mountain Lane, Beaverton, Washington County. So I'm a 20-year Oregon resident with 10 years in Washington County. And I'd like to draw us back to the mid-'80s when Oregon legislature adopted statutes that specify in detail how a city must conduct annexation of a contiguous territory. This was in direct response to city governments at the time not having their own due process and operating well outside of good faith. These statutes are unmistakable and not open for interpretation, and they directly apply to the topic of the day. As a reminder, the territory in question is currently Washington County outside of Beaverton city limits. Per Oregon statute, to conduct this hearing, a hearing where we're conducting annexation by hearing, you must already have collected written consent from half the affected homeowners who represent half the land area and more than half of the assessed value. As no such evidence has been supplied or discussed in the preceding 4 years of this project, we are simply left to conclude you do not have this consent as of today. I've canvassed more than 50 homeowners today, none of which have ever been consulted in providing their consent. There's an estimated 174 tax lots across this territory, which would mean you would need a triple majority of number of homeowners, square area, and current assessed value today to hold this hearing per Oregon statute. Oregon statute thus requires the city to put this topic to a vote where affected homeowners can weigh in democratically. Now, for myself, in this election season, I can't imagine commissioners would be wanting to remove our ability to vote in democratically, wherein the state requires us to do so. Again, specifically, Oregon law requires annexation by hearing to preemptively have written consent from half the affected homeowners that represent half the land area and also half of the current assessed value. Do you have this today? If not, you have to allow the affected homeowners to vote on the matter. Given this represents what I have been told by the assessor, a 50% tax increase for most property owners, while simultaneously decreasing freedoms and with negligible or unspecified benefit for current homeowners, I suspect is the reason that we have employed an illegal and unwarranted approach to annexation. Now, I ask of the commission and all of those that have worked on this, I see some familiar names. I want to thank you for the diligence year over year and in keeping this process going. All for the trees, the deer, we're missing the red-tailed hawks. I get it, I love it. But I ask, after 4 years and tens of thousands of hours, what I can only deduce to be millions of dollars the city of Beaverton has invested in this, how has this requirement been missed? Has it been intentionally bypassed? Was it gross negligence? If this very specific requirement in Oregon law has been missed, how can we trust other aspects of the process? Further, part of the annexation process by Oregon statute requires notification of the Secretary of State with regards to what Oregon statutes were followed to pursue annexation. And so I ask of you, are you planning on misleading the Secretary of State on this matter? And will you continue to prevent our legal right to vote? At the top of the hour, you had said any testimony that is provided tonight without explicit specificity would not be considered as sufficient testimony. So for a moment, I'm going to read to you the Oregon statute that applies. ORS 222.170.1, annexation by consent before public hearing for order for election or order for election. So the relevant quote, the legislative body of the city need not call or hold an election in any contiguous territory proposed to be annexed if more than half of the owners of the land in the territory who also own more than half of the land in the contiguous territory and of real property therein, representing more than half of the assessed value of all real property in the contiguous territory, consent in writing to the annexation of their land in the territory and file a statement of their consent with the legislative body on or before the date. That is today. If you don't have that today, this hearing is essentially illegal by view of Oregon statute. More relevant statutes apply. One moment. Procedure for annexation without election, ORS 222.120. Relevant quote, except when expressly required to do so by the city charter, the legislative body of a city is not required to submit a proposal for annexation of territory to the electors of the city for their approval or rejection. Now, we are not your city electors. That's the city of Beaverton. ORS 222.120 is not a get out of jail free card. That simply means you don't have to send it to a vote within the city limits, but it does not preclude you and allow for you to dismiss the opportunity for the affected homeowners to vote on the issue. Further, ORS 222.130 annexation election, relevant quote, the statement summarizing the measure and its major effect in the ballot title for a proposal for annexation shall contain a general description of the boundaries of each territory proposed to be annexed. The description shall use streets and other generally recognized features. And it continues. The key point about ORS 222.130 is that there is specificity that the state has supplied that dictates how a city must pursue annexation of contiguous territory. Now, there are other methods and means with which a city can annex a territory. Portland, Oregon has popularized the city method. I believe it's ORS 222.165, which doesn't apply because this territory is not encircled by the city limits. Now, also, there's another method that could be employed wherein you can annex the territory by public health concern, and that also does not apply here. Okay. So I ask of you to consider Oregon statutes.
Yeah, can you wrap up you've gone a little beyond your 5 minutes. So,
understood.
Yeah.
The last thing I would add is throughout the Oregon, the Beaverton, Oregon City Charter, it articulates in numerous places that it is the responsibility of Beaverton City elected officials to follow the laws of the state of Oregon.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, do any of you have any questions of the speaker? Not at this time. All right, thank you very much for your testimony. So, it looks like we have another hand from Sivan Ben David. If you would like to speak in opposition. Please state your name and address for the record.
I spoke before. I'm not moving to opposition. I just realized, can you just move my comment to neutral? It's not opposition or positive. I just wanted my comment section in the neutral section. I realized that after. I'm so sorry.
No
Thank
worries.
you guys. That's
Okay.
it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we will move on to other comments in opposition. I see Keenan Orden Bakalian. Will you please state your name and address for the record, and then you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Keenan Orden Bakalian. My address is 1211 Southwest 5th Ave, Portland, Oregon. I'm a land use attorney with the law firm Schwabe Williamson and Wyatt. I represent Dave Olson and Casey Sayre. They're the owners of 18485 and 18395 Southwest Horsetail Drive. First, just wanted to thank you guys tonight for spending your time on this, as well as the work the staff has done on this plan. I know how much effort and time has gone into this, and we really are appreciative of those efforts. So thank you. Tonight, I want to speak a little bit about primarily the resource overlay and the impact it's going to have on our clients' properties. Both the properties are covered by the proposed Cooper Mountain concept plan, and they're going to be substantially encumbered by the proposed Cooper Mountain resource overlay, which is going to be implemented by BDC 6037. The Cooper Mountain Community Plan also shows 2 proposed collector roads that will run through my client's property within the area that's already slated to be encumbered by the resource overlay. My client's been involved in the planning process for many months here. We've submitted testimony on April 25th, as well as July 17th. We also submitted a letter today. Hopefully you've had a chance to read that. If not, it is in the record, so take a look at it when you can. And within all of that testimony, there's really 2 primary concerns we have with the current draft of the resource overlay. Although the written testimony is much more specific in terms of our concerns, I'm going to briefly summarize those concerns for you tonight. First, I think we're concerned primarily about the methodology behind the adoption of the resource overlay within the community plan. If the resource overlay is adopted in its current form, it will effectively preclude development of my client's properties. I believe Rob did a good job summarizing exactly kind of how the overlay is supposed to work when it's designated on a property, with 80% of the area precluded from development and 20% remaining available for development so long as there's mitigation. When we're talking about the entire property being designated by the resource overlay, that means there's only 20% of the developable acreage actually available for development. And within that, we still need to conduct mitigation efforts. So you can kind of see why we're concerned about some of the aspects of this plan. And in addition, the methodology behind adopting the resource overlay in the first instance. I think one of our primary concerns here is that we've been designated with the resource overlay primarily because of upland tree area, but the information, the assumptions behind that designation are based entirely off of aerial photographs from 2018. The properties were logged in 2019, so there are no trees fitting the definition of upland resource area in terms of the tree height. So we're effectively designating properties with a resource overlay with no actual trees on them anymore. And we've spoken to staff about this. They say their hands are tied. They cite to the Metro Code in regard to looking at the aerials at the time that the area was brought into the UGB. Respectfully, we don't read the code to say that you have to rely on those photographs. In this instance, we're respectfully requesting that staff take a closer look at these properties and actually examine the existing conditions on the ground there. In addition to the upland designations, the plan also designates all streams within the plan area as perennial. We understand that it's difficult to conduct stream by stream analysis within such a large plan area. That said, to just generally assume that all streams are perennial without actually taking a look at that forces the onus on the landowner to hire consultants, take the time, effort, and money to actually analyze the existing conditions of their properties. So in a way, both the upland designation methodology and the riparian area are passing the cost onto the property owners within the plan area to actually conduct the accurate land use planning that respectfully we think should be conducted up front before the plan is adopted. Second, I think the other primary objection we have is the planned extension of the 2 collector roads within the TSP onto the properties. Not only do these collector roads plan to traverse the areas where my clients' properties or their residences currently are, meaning where their homes are, they are also traversing the area that's designated with the resource overlay. So there's an internal inconsistency there that staff have designated these 2 areas for collectors, but also designated them as resource overlay. And to make matters worse, unfortunately, based on conversations we've had, it looks like the collector areas, the areas that are designated for the collectors, are going to count against our developable acreage, meaning that once the collectors have been designated, we will have even less acreage within the resource overlay zone to actually develop. And again, that's subject to the mitigation. So I think that that's a big concern of ours here, primarily because although there is a process to obtain additional developable acreage in circumstances like when the conductors have been designated, it's a type 3 process that we have to go through and again pay the time, money, and cost to actually achieve. So I think that that's a concern we have in terms of these specific properties, but more broadly, we're also concerned just generally with the methodology of the plan in designating these collectors on top of resource overlay zones. We think that if there's a collector to be designated, it should not be within a resource overlay zone. So effectively, the collector would not be within that zone. The zone would be on either side of the area that the collector is designated for. I think that could be a potential option to resolving this internal inconsistency here. Other than that, again, like I said, I really appreciate the time and effort that staff's put into this. These are concerns that relate specifically to my clients' properties, but I think also more generally to a lot of properties within the Cooper Mountain plan area. So at this time, I'm happy to take any questions you have or otherwise engage in discussion. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions of the speaker? Doesn't look like it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition of the application? Okay, I see ARK ARC-on-XVPM. Will you please state your name and address for the record? Oh, you're muted still. You should be able to unmute. You are still muted. Staff, are you able to unmute?
I'm only able to request it. I can't unmute them manually.
Okay. Hopefully you can hear us and can unmute yourself. Maybe we should move on to the next person and we'll come back to you so we can figure out technical issues. I apologize. So I see the next person on the list that wishes to speak is listed as E. Please state your name and address for the record before you speak. All right, I think we can hear you.
7172 Southwest Parker Road, Aloha, Oregon, 97007. I've emailed written testimony requesting that the record be held open, and I've been advised that that is up to the discretion of this body, at least by staff. In review of public testimony, I've been trying to raise an issue for about a decade. That decade is that the LiDAR input as purchased by Beaverton for the entire planning process of all 3 sub-areas, South Cooper Mountain, and North Cooper Mountain, they have artifacts and inconsistencies. Specifically on my address, we did a home site and we never developed it. And that was flagged as a landslide hazard. And there just doesn't seem to be a way to correct this. I'm left with tremendous ambiguity, particularly with the tree canopy. Washington County going through a similar process of identifying significant natural resources, included almost my entire property, and then removed almost my entire property. So I'm now left trying to figure out what is the delta, what is the difference between two modalities. And I'm left with a determination that in the 21 years I've been tracking the development for this, which would originate with a postcard from Metro in the year 2003, letting me know that Metro was doing a habitat inventory. But we really don't have an updated habitat inventory. In the previous testimony that reflected Horsetail Lane properties is a great example of where the trees on the ground don't match the pictures, don't match an inventory, and there's a cost burden shift to the landowners in order to figure out what kind of trees we've got. I have a mixture of mature second growth Doug fir canopy, as best as I can tell, because they're different trees. I didn't give birth to them. I also have what I call scrub maple, which is a much lower habitat tree, but that's all commingled in the same habitat. Nobody seems to want to spend money in order to figure it out. And I'm not interested in joining a city that doesn't want to do the planning right. So at this point, I want to wind down my remarks. Thank everybody for the work. I realize you guys have done a lot of hard work. But, you know, I'm fatigued. People, 21 years. What's this 21 years, people? We still haven't figured it out? Well, I guess, thank you all.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions of the speaker? Do not see any. Thank you for your comments. Let's go back. If anyone wishes to speak in opposition, it appears that, where's the person that we lost? I am seeing Alvin Steele, who would like to speak.
Hello, thank you. My name is Alvin Steele, and we live at 17475 Southwest Alvord Lane. I find this plan interesting, but I am very concerned that, as with Mr. Penderson, we have not been contacted about this planned annexation. It will result in increased taxes and some different constraints on our land use, but particularly the problem is that we have not been contacted. That's a big issue from my perspective. If you could speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
Commissioners?
Hear me?
Yep, hi. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Or I don't know if we want to hold responses for staff until after. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Steele. There will be time for a rebuttal after we get through the comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, so next I see Jennifer wishing to speak. Please state your name and address for the record. It looks like you are muted, Jennifer, if you can unmute. I hope. Looks like Jennifer, I know I can't hear you, so I can't tell if you are struggling to unmute, but you are still muted. Okay, Jennifer, I think we're gonna go on to the next person, but please hang on. Hopefully we can sort out the technical difficulties so you can speak. So let's move on to John Nichols. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is John Nichols. We live at 17610 Southwest Outlook Lane. And we have lived here for nearly 40 years. And we have watched as things have changed on Cooper Mountain, mostly for the worse. We have a situation where we often wait 15 minutes to get out of our driveway because of the traffic on 175th. I am very concerned with the comments that Mr. Peterson raised, the fact that we have not been contacted. And I'm also concerned that with the density that you're talking about, we are concerned about preserving. The reason that we moved here 40 years ago was for the privacy and quiet, which has gone by the wayside for the most part. But we want to make sure that there's some sort of assurance that there will be some sort of demising wall or fence line that divides our properties on the north side of Outlook Lane from whatever subsequent development may come up. And so that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions of the speaker? I don't see any. Thank you for your comments. It looks like next we have Ron. Please state your name and address for the record.
Ron Anderson, 19237 Southwest Tile Flat Road. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Finally. Okay, this Cooper Mountain community plan is getting the cart before the horse. When West Hills Land and Development submitted their plan, developed Shoals Heights at South Cooper Mountain, which is below where you're talking about now. It's now owned by South Cooper Mountain Owner LLC, also known as Taylor Morrison. They were required to commission a traffic impact analysis study. That May 22nd, 2017 document by Kittleson and Associates addressed the cumulative transportation-related impacts of full build-out of the neighborhood, which was a plan to develop up to 707 single-family homes and up to 275 multifamily units on Shoals Heights property, currently occupied by farmland and several single-family homes, all of which will be replaced by the development, with full occupancy expected in 2022. That did not happen. I suspect the part about the single-family homes, which will be replaced by the development, is the principal reason that the $7.33 billion South Cooper Mountain Owner LLC has not turned a spade in the fallow real estate surrounding our two single-family homes. That's mine and our neighbors. That's my wild speculation. A few reasons that seem likely to me is because on Thursday, the 7th of March, 2019 at 7 p.m. during a CPO6 public meeting at TV Fire and Rescue Community Room in Blanton, Brian Martin, hi Brian, City of Beaverton Long Range Planning Manager, while giving a South Cooper Mountain area update, fielded a complaint from one of the attendees. There was a sign up, so there's probably a record of suspects and witnesses. Why the city has taken so long to acquire certain private property as the price and value has increased significantly, costing the project more. In response, he lamented the fact that Beaverton lacked the power of condemnation, mollifying the protester by asserting that the Willamette Water Supply Program is armed with that authority and would likely use it, ostensibly to the protesters' gain. That response sent a chill up my spine, but I just made a note of it and set it aside. Imagine my surprise when the Willamette Water Supply Program later showed up with papers declaring their intent to demand an easement on our property, despite the obvious option of avoiding our property altogether, given that it was clearly neither needed nor required as they had stated, but they merely wanted to place the pipe under the future improved tile flat road as provided by the South Cooper Mountain community concept plan. It almost sounded like the Willamette Water Supply Program was being coached by the City of Beaverton's long-range planning manager or other parties how to erode the value of our property for the benefit of the $7.33 billion developer stuck in limbo because their, quote, corporate structure has changed dramatically and have significantly different internal metrics that they need to achieve to move forward with the deal, unquote, such that their latest offer to us was a fraction of the inflated and adjusted equivalent of what the jury awarded Crescent Grove Cemetery versus Beaverton for the land now occupied by Mountainside High School. Imagine my surprise also when I noticed suspect verbiage in the Willamette Water Supply's initial contract that, quote, grantees may assign or transfer their interests without consent of grantor, unquote. We wonder who they had in mind. We instructed our attorney to strike that clause from the easement contract offered to us and to restrict the easement for the exclusive purpose of the pipeline. Why is this South Cooper Mountain plan getting the cart before the horse? According to a phone conversation I had with Polygon's land acquisition manager, May 30th, 2019 at 3:56 p.m., their 110, quote, closings did not yet trigger their, quote, obligation fulfillment, unquote, to widen Southwest Tile Flat Road. Clearly, that the safety trigger should not be how many beds South Cooper Mountain owner sells, but how many vehicles are loading our narrow country lane, regardless of which builder sells those beds. That's an undue burden on Taylor Morrison, in my humble opinion. I believe the threshold was crossed a long time ago, endangering every builder's customers. Southwest Tile Flat Road, despite the concerted efforts to gaslight us, does not meet the specifications of a proper arterial, much less collector. In fact, OTEC's drawing is a bit deceptive. I've printed this and you have it in the record. I assume unintentionally, the so-called existing travel lane is not actually the generously inflated 11 feet. If you measure between the lane markers, vehicles here have only 101 inches, that's 8 feet and 5 inches of wiggle room before they risk initiating a lane change maneuver as defined by the International UN Regulation 79. And OTEC gets credit for all those drawings, and you can see that they showed the existing Tile Flat Road, which is it's a generous lie, or it's I'm not sure what to call it. It is not true. Right. And there's a collector, and then there's a arterial, 3-lane arterial. Now, development has changed the dynamics of our narrow country lane, is resulting in our first fatality. May Tankersley, 17, who lost control of her Wrangler, rolled and slammed into a telephone pole in front of my eyes, upside down, facing the opposite direction in a drainage ditch, having miraculously avoided all the accumulating oncoming traffic. The increase in traffic over the next 2 years before the currently scheduled road improvements begin will be a morbid roll of the dice that will increase the probability of reaping more souls.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your comments. You are a little bit past your 5 minutes here. So, commissioners, do you have any questions of the speaker? It looks like we don't have any. Thank you for your comments this evening. Do we have anyone else who would wish to speak in opposition of the application? Am I seeing? I see Margarita Gunther. Please state your name and address for the record. And you have 5 minutes.
Hi, this is Steve Gunther. Address is 9160 Southwest 175th Avenue in Beaverton. I've got 2 concerns regarding this proposal. The first is, as somebody else spoke about earlier, traffic is becoming a nightmare. It's virtually impossible to pull out of many roads and driveways onto Southwest 175th Avenue north of the traffic circle. This development is going to make that worse. I'm curious what your plans are for working with the County of Washington to resolve that traffic bottleneck that you're building north of the Kemmer traffic circle. Second related question is, I noticed that the high density development is slated to go right on that traffic circle, effectively doubling down on the traffic problem. And I'd also like to point out that that high density housing is completely different than the existing residential houses in that area of town. So why did we choose to put the high density right next to all the single family homes, right next to your biggest traffic bottleneck?
Thank you. Commissioners, does anyone have any questions for the speaker? All right, thank you for your comments. It looks like we have someone listed as Zoom user who would like to speak. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Kyle Hand. I'm at 11490 Southwest 175th Avenue. I'd like to say that I oppose the annexation. It seems legally dubious. If I could, at the end of this statement, I'd like to yield my time back to Austin Peterson. I'd like to hear more about what he has to say about this. On the face of it, to us, it feels like we don't have a lot of representation in this. The benefits are more traffic, higher taxes, more crime. It seems like a windfall win for the city of Beaverton, but we're not getting a lot out of this. And then, man, the traffic is going to be ridiculous. Yeah, I just oppose this. This is a bad idea.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the speaker? Looks like none. Thank you very much. All right, next up, we have someone who is listed as ATAYL10. Please make sure you unmute yourself, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Aaron Taylor. I'm at 17955 Southwest Cooper Mountain Lane. Want to go on record as opposing this just based on the fact that I also feel like we have not had proper communication or understanding or any kind of process regarding multiple things, not only just having a say in the process as a homeowner here, but also not given any understanding of what we would be getting in exchange for being part of the city, other than taxes and what kind of services would there be. There's multiple stories about the Beaverton Police Department and their lack of funding. I can't imagine that expanding the city even more would fix that at all. So no understanding of kind of what services we would gain, or any understanding of would it be an overnight tax increase of 100%? Would it be metered out over time? No communication at all. Want to go on record that I oppose this.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the speaker? No. Okay. Mr. Peterson, I see your hand is raised. As a reminder, we cannot yield time from one speaker to another, and I believe you've already used your 5 minutes.
Totally understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? I see Bob Smith has raised their hand. Please state your name and address for the record. Bob, we cannot hear you. Bob, do you wish to speak? Okay, looks like you've put your hand down. So we'll move on to the next person. I see Kurt Perkins. Please state your name and address for the record. Hello, Kurt Perkins. We cannot hear you. We are still not hearing anything. So we might want to move on to whoever wishes to speak next, and we can try to come back to you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? All right. I see Eric has raised their hand. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi there, Eric Hobble, 17130 Southwest Alvard Lane. We'd like to speak in opposition for this. As a property owner here in our family for over 60 years on Alvard Lane, we don't see any benefit to the acquisition into the city of Beaverton. We're looking at only additional traffic. We're not understanding the overlay use and prohibition of our land that we've had for the last 60 years that inhibits us from developing or using any of our resources that have been in the family that now seem to be a part of the city of Beaverton's resource. So we just like to stand in opposition and note that this doesn't benefit any bit of the landowner's use here on Alvord Lane. It may benefit the city of Beaverton, and I understand you're gaining more taxes, but for the landowner, what is it you're doing for the people that are living here in South Cooper Mountain at the time? It's only inhibiting us and creating complications and taking more money from us and creating additional traffic. So I just don't see a single benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the speaker? I do not see any. Thank you very much for your comments. So let's try Kurt Perkins again. Please state your name and address for the record. Hello? Kurt Perkins?
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah, so it's Colleen and Kurt Perkins. We're at 17865 Southwest Cooper Mountain Lane. And we just wanted to say that we fully agree with Mr. Peterson, who raised some significant questions about the legality of our community being annexed into Beaverton. We are in favor of bringing this to a vote within our community and our area regarding annexation into Beaverton. We feel like we should have that say. Do you have any other?
And we're against annexation. And we agree with Mr. Peterson totally. And we would like the commission to answer his questions he presented to you folks. And we thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions of our speaker? All right, thank you both very much. Appreciate it. Let's go to try Bob Smith again. Bob, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Bob Smith. I live at 17290 Southwest Alvord Lane. And I'd like to join the chorus of people who are in opposition being incorporated into Beaverton. As has been mentioned, I see no advantage to it and nothing but disadvantages. To the extent that Austin Peterson has pointed out that it may not be legal to do it without a vote. This, I hope that's resolved, but just let me say, I would like not to be part of Beaverton. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions of the speaker? I don't see any. Thank you very much for your comments. Next, I see Jen Sickard. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Sickard, and my address is 16880 Siler Ridge Lane.
Thank you. And do you have comments?
I do. So addressing the Siler Ridge mixed use residential and commercial zoning. A lot of the people in the neighborhood, including myself, feel that lack of planning and including commissioners saying at this meeting they can experiment with zoning square footage for mixed use in an ambiguous way is concerning. Especially Commissioner and I, suggesting in a fully residential area, which is not walkable, let's be real, to change the time frame for commercial from 7 to 10, which is already stressing the area, to 6-ish. Employees would arrive early. It would make Silo Ridge a neighborhood through road. It encourages traffic at unreasonable hours. It's a residential area, and it has been for 30 years. And it's very disconcerting that commissioners, they're sort of just saying this is an experiment. I mean, I go back to Peterson saying this is legally not been thought through. So.
Thank you. Did you have any other comments?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the speaker? All right, thank you very much for your feedback. Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? I am not seeing anyone, so we will move on to those who wish to, who are neither in favor nor in opposition, who would like to speak. For those who are viewing via Zoom webinar, please communicate by using the raise hand feature in your Zoom menu bar. If calling in, press *9 to alert the chair that you would like to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to speak neither in favor nor in opposition of the application? It appears that we have none. So we will move on to final staff comments. Staff, do you have any final comments?
Sure. I can just get us started for a minute, and then I might hand it off to other people. But I did want to take a moment to talk about why this project started in the first place. We know that over time, our housing studies have shown a significant need for housing in the city and the region. This project could provide up to 5,000 new homes for the area, and it does so in a way that still protects natural resources, and it includes plans for how transportation improvements could provide more safe and convenient ways for everyone to get around these neighborhoods. I'm not going to talk too much about that point, but I did want to bring the focus back to housing and the need for housing. There are some topics we'd like to address. I think it would be important to talk about annexation first. We then would like to talk about the resource overlay and transportation improvements. And I could end with just a brief recap on our engagement approach and how we've reached out to property owners in the last 4 years, just to wrap it up. So, and if there's anything else, of course, you'd like for us to address, please let us know. But I'm going to hand it over to Brian Martin so he can talk a little bit about annexation.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for their comments and their questions about what we're doing tonight. So one of the important things to note is there's no annexation happening as part of this hearing. There's no annexation proposed as part of this hearing. The topic of the hearing has nothing to do with annexation. It is a comprehensive plan amendment application that's being discussed, zoning map amendment to establish a map of zoning for the area, and a text amendment, which is a funny way of saying new development rules for Cooper Mountain. So these applications are to prepare on the city side, and working with the public and planning commissioners and property owners to establish development rules for the future when annexation occurs. The area to provide the housing Rob was talking about needs those development rules. It needs infrastructure, roads, water, sewer. And then one of the essential steps before development occurs is also annexation, which will be done consistent with state law.
Thank you.
Great. Alyssa, would you mind sharing more information about what we propose for the resource overlay?
Yeah, sure. Hi, commissioners. Alyssa Maxwell, capital planning project manager, and I've been working on our natural resource rules and resource overlay code. I know we had several questions from property owners wondering about the designation of resources on their property. And so I just, if you have additional specific questions, we're happy to answer them. But as a reminder, that natural resources mapping was done consistent with Metro's rules. It is, as was mentioned, when Metro added this area to the urban growth boundary, they have an obligation to update natural resource mapping. And so we have completed that mapping as part of this process. In your packets, we have exhibits 17 and 18, which are letters from Metro that are affirming that resource mapping is consistent with the regional rules, and then identifying the proposed development code is also substantially compliant with the model code that Metro has for us in Title 13. So I also want to identify that the code right now identifies where the resource overlay exists based on the information and the planning level information that we have. There is a process in the code if property owners believe or have additional information that would better identify the location of resources on their property. Through any development, during any development application, a property owner would do a site-specific environmental investigation. That's part of any development process. And with that, they would be clarifying the specific location of wetlands, the specific location of streams, as happens across the region. And so our process is that they would continue to work through or work with Clean Water Services or the Department of State Lands to confirm the location of those resources. And then our code has a type 1 application process to adjust the boundary of the resource overlay accordingly. So if a stream right now that we've mapped as perennial were to be confirmed by Clean Water Services to be an intermittent stream, then the resource overlay boundary would shrink accordingly. We do believe that those processes will be worked through during the application. And again, that would be after a property chooses to annex and goes through the land use process for development. These rules don't apply to anybody today or at approval of this plan. They apply after properties are added to the city in the future.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
On that subject, it does seem like the resource overlay and some of these, the kind of what got designated at that planning level is in question by a number of folks in the area. Is there a reason for using the 2018 kind of, it sounds like it was mainly based on aerial information as opposed to maybe more up-to-date information that landowners have now prior to actually adopting this? I mean, it does seem like we're about to maybe adopt a plan that is knowingly maybe out of date in some areas.
Right. No, I understand that. And yes, so the way that Metro's rules read is that the Metro originally did resource mapping for these properties in 2005. I think one of our, someone made a comment about that original work, and then they have an obligation to update that mapping at the time that properties are added to the urban growth boundary. And so that's the 2018 date. And so that's why we are using the closest available natural resources information and aerial photos to that 2018 date. So our process was to go through and identify properties that had changed since that 2018 mapping, or where we had better information, or 2005, since we had better information from the 2005 mapping to understand the conditions of the land at the time that it was brought into the UGB, since that was the approval date. And we do recognize that property owners may have more up-to-date information or more site-specific investigations. We haven't done site-by-site investigations for all 1,200 acres. That is the process that would happen during land development.
Thank you.
And then Rob, did you want me to also address the question about, you're nodding. So I also wanted to address my thought process here. Address the questions about transportation improvements as well as some of the other infrastructure. We do recognize that there are a number of transportation needs that are going to need to be addressed as if and when these properties do develop. So the plan includes a transportation impact analysis, a transportation needs analysis that has identified a series of projects. We've added, the proposed amendments would add a number of those projects to the TSP, our transportation system plan, so that those collector roads and neighborhood routes would be developed during or added when development occurs. The amendments also include a infrastructure funding plan that identifies the improvements that would be needed. It does identify that improvements are needed on 175th, which is a Washington County road, Kemmer, Weir, Tile Flat, Grabhorn, as well as collector roads and neighborhood routes within the plan area. And then their infrastructure funding plan outlines a strategy that would fund those needed improvements, through the development process. So whether that's certain as development occurs paying for projects, or whether that's through the collection of SDCs during that development to support future capital projects. So that is included in that funding plan is one strategy, and that's included in the amendments. It covers transportation, water, sewer, stormwater, as well as non-potable water. Oh, and parks and trails. Are there other questions that we can answer or clarify for the commissioners?
Commissioner Lawler.
I'm trying to find out the individual, but the individual who spoke about Tile Flat, and from his testimony, I took that he believes that there were certain commitments made to the developers to improve Tile Flat associated with South Cooper Mountain. So I was wondering if you could kind of touch on what has been done thus far and associated with that development, and to address some of, especially it seems like these arterials around the site.
Yes, it was not super clear to me whether the section of Tile Flat was related to South Cooper or our current proposed amendments, but Tile Flat is a county arterial road. And so there have been some improvements that have been made to Tile Flat as conditions of development with South Cooper Mountain. And then we've identified the improvements that would be needed with the next potential phase of development. I do believe the portion related to South Cooper Mountain is a project that's on Washington County's radar. And so we are in coordination with the county because we also agree that that project is important, but it's a project that the county's working on through their funding and their capital improvement process.
Okay, yeah, that was Mr. Ron Anderson's comment. That's what I was reflecting on. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? All right. Thank you, staff. Does the city attorney have any final comments?
I will just briefly address the request to leave the record open. I just want to make sure that the Planning Commission is clear that this is a legislative hearing and there is no statutory requirement to leave the record open as there is with a quasi-judicial hearing. The Planning Commission's decision tonight is going to be a recommendation to City Council, so people will have another opportunity to testify. So I just want to make sure everybody is aware of that they will get another opportunity. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, I believe final comments have been completed, so we will close the public hearing, and as is standard procedure, we will poll the commissioners to state their conclusions on the application. Commissioner Lawler.
Well, as Ms. Latinsky said, this has been a long process, and a lot of staff hours and conversations have occurred with within the jurisdictions that have some influence in this area and the landowners. And obviously there are still some a bit of unresolved issues about how the plan will affect individual property owners. But I believe that, the fact that we are reviewing a comprehensive plan and a zoning map amendment and a text amendment that does not require anybody to do anything. It is really just laying the groundwork for the city to take, and individual property owners that wish to initiate development actions in due time. There's a lot of work that needs to be done before any development hits the road. Any houses get developed, they've got to build roads and sewers, and this is a long-term process. And I think the conclusion that I have is that that we ought to recommend approval. Let me think about. I think Commissioner Nye, I would defer to her expertise in the architectural arena about the difference between 1,500 square foot and 1,800 square feet. I'm trying to picture what that looks like. I'm thinking of a plaid pantry, and it doesn't look that big. So, but I also want to be aware of the fact that this is kind of a specialized area that we're creating out of, it isn't a commercial zone. We have the two commercial focal points, and then these will be small businesses associated with parks and trails and et cetera. And residential uses. So it's going to be a little bit of an experiment, but I think we've talked a lot about, or earlier I remember conversations about how South Cooper Mountain seemed to have the commercial kind of disassociated with residential. And I think that this is a really useful opportunity to try to create some more small commercial opportunities within the residential area. So with that long-winded discussion, I recommend that we move forward and recommend the City Council adopt this with a slightly larger square footage for the residential related commercial.
Thank you. Commissioner Winter. You are muted, sir.
I know. As soon as I started talking, I remembered that I'd shut myself up because I have a big dog sitting right behind me. As was mentioned before, this process has been a long process. It's not over. And I think as far as we've gotten, we're doing a great job. And I would agree with Commissioner Nye's suggestion to increase the square footage, because as Commissioner McCann said, that there's no reason not to try to experiment a little bit. Numbers, if there's one thing I've learned in my years on the Planning Commission, is that city staff makes as best guess estimates as they possibly can, and sometimes we just need to adjust them a little bit. We can always adjust them up or down. So I'm in favor of recommending to the City Council that they adopt this ordinance.
Thank you. Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, Chair McCann. I think that I'm going to recommend advancing it on to the City Council for approval, and with the caveat that we continue to take into consideration the community's concerns. I think they brought up some good concerns tonight, and that we keep those communication lines open.
Thank you. Commissioner Nye.
Let's see, I think it generally meets the approval criteria. This has been a long road, and we really tried to learn from the South Cooper Mountain planning and implementation. So I hope this goes better and ultimately meets the community's needs and desires in a better way than the South Cooper Mountain Plan did. I had 3 things for discussion, one being 20.22.35, 2B2, A and B, changing the max square footage from 1,500 to 1,800 square feet. The discussion on the hours of operation, whether we were interested in allowing people to apply for conditional use to open earlier. So that would be 20.22.35, 3F.1. And I think Brian said if we were interested in that, he had a condition of approval draft or a provision drafted. And the third one was 60.05.25, 3J.3, which was the community room ceiling height, changing the floor to floor from 12 feet to 11 feet. So those were my 3 recommended changes for discussion.
Okay. Yes, I'll speak maybe first, and other commissioners, if you want to weigh in on discussion before we move on to a motion. I think overall, I'm in a in the same court as the commissioners of recommending approval to council, although really do understand some of the concerns and frustration of the community. So I appreciate Commissioner Adams' comments about really keeping the communication open. As far as Commissioner Nye's recommendations, based on the feedback received, I personally am comfortable with the adjustment to the square footage for the commercial. If that gives sort of a little more flexibility, that might encourage, a small coffee shop or something to be able to move in. And of course, they don't have to make it that big. So I think I'm okay with that, as well as the floor to floor height adjustment for the community room. I think based on the feedback received, maybe I don't feel as supportive of making the shift in the operational hours or excuse me, allowing for the conditional use, because it sounds like there are probably some community concerns, and maybe it's okay to keep it at the 7 to 10 kind of range. So, and sort of not open that. Personally, I don't feel strongly about that adjustment. Are there other commissioners with other thoughts or opinions on things? Commissioner Lawler.
About the hours of operation, I think allowing it or considering it as a conditional use then would bring in some of the community concerns, if there should be some associated with that. So I'm willing to go along with that as change. And I don't have any opinion about the ceiling to height, but if it can decrease the cost of development, I think that's a goal that we would like to see implemented in this area. So I guess I'm inclined to support all 3 of those amendments or recommendations.
Anyone else have comments? All right, well, let's move on. Is there a motion? Or do we need to pause and talk about language? How do we do this, Robin?
Well, I was going to say, I believe Brian might have some proposed code language that he can talk about.
Okay.
Sure. I think Commissioner and I already pretty much described the easy ones, but I'll go ahead and read what I have anyway. If Anna or Robin have advice about how to transmit text, I can do that too. But here's what I have written down. Revise section 60.05.25 3J2 to replace 12 feet with 11 feet. The second one is revise section 2022-35 2B2 to replace all references to 1,500 square feet with 1,800 square feet. There's 3 references in there. And revise section 2022-35 3F1 to say, except for childcare facilities, hours of operation may not be extended past 10 p.m. through the conditional use process as identified in the code. I think there could be a second sentence there that could clarify if you're interested, and that sentence would be, the conditional use applications are allowed for extending the hours of operation for businesses before 7 a.m. Just so it's clear, you can go earlier, but not later. But if you don't think you need the second sentence, it's kind of up to you about how you want to make that motion.
Brian, is there any chance you can share your screen so that if a commissioner wants to make a motion?
Yes, just give me a moment.
Sure, I would just, recommend you can make a motion to recommend approval by the city council as presented by staff, as amended with the amendments, with the following amendments, and you can read the list that Brian puts up.
Almost there. It's too big. Okay. Let's try this. All right, can you, is it showing?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So do we have a motion? Or
I know you're waiting on me, and I'm rapidly digging through to find the original mountain plan so I can get all the right numbers. I haven't looked up that plan apparently for several months, and my computer is hiding my very wishes. So we have a technical challenge.
do we want to have someone else jump in on this?
Anybody's got the numbers.
Anyone?
Aren't they in the script for
Nope.
tonight, Chair McCann?
They are.
What? I didn't see them.
They're on the front.
On the front. Okay.
Do you have the script, Mr. Winter?
Again, we are spinning circles on the. I have a big screen in front of me and a laptop here. My laptop is spinning circles. I'm trying to open tonight's information.
Okay.
Brian has added the reference to his shared screen document.
Oh,
thank you, the team. I move. I'm sorry. I move to recommend the agenda application of LU 42024-00682 Cooper Mountain Community Plan, case file numbers CPMA 42024-00679, TA 42024-00680, and ZMA 42024-00681 to City Council for their process.
Okay.
I-
A second.
Can I just jump in and just ask, did you want to add the amendments that were proposed by Commissioner Nye? Because if you did, you could say approve or recommend approval of those land use applications as presented by staff, as amended by as follows: revise section 60.05.25 and so on and so forth. If you wanted to include in your motion approval with the amendments.
Okay, so here's where I'm going with this. Did we vote as a commission to forward those visions to the council?
Well, you can do that as part of the motion. So if you make the motion for the amendments, any commissioner can say whether they want to. Well, there's two ways you can do it. You can move like you've done, and then Commissioner Nye can move to amend it to add the revisions, or you can propose it all at once. Since it sounds like enough commissioners are in concurrence, but I will leave that up to you how you want to approach it.
Traditionally, and I hate to drag out that word because it doesn't mean much, we've always got some kind of consensus before we've gone into process. But seeing as we're 2/3 of the way through the door right now, then I will also suggest that I continue on and add the recommendations to send to City Council, revise section 60.05.25.3.1 or .3.j.2 to replace 12 feet with 11 feet, and revise section 20.22.35.2.b.2 to replace all references of 1,500 square feet with 1,800 square feet, and to revise section 20.22.35.3.f.1 to say, except for childcare facilities, hours of operation may not be extended past 10 p.m. The conditional use process as identified in this code. Conditional use applications are allowed for extending the hours of operation for businesses before 7 a.m. Is that satisfactory?
I think so.
Yes, and commissioners, if there is a particular, you can also make an amended motion if you don't want to accept any of those revisions. You can amend the motion to strike a particular revision if you'd like.
But I'll second that motion.
Okay. So we have a second. Yeah.
Question. So if we send all of this on to City Council without deciding whether we want to send these revisions on, do they just adopt that as part of the application and make those decisions themselves?
Your recommendation will be to approve the amendments, the applications as presented by staff with the following amendments. So that's going to be all of your recommendations. Staff will present it to City Council with those 3 revisions, if that's what you approve tonight. Was that the question?
That was the question, but I didn't know that we had approved those revisions. That was why I didn't put it in there the first time.
No, this is part of, through this motion, which right. Commissioner Lawler seconded, you can take a vote on it and approve it by voting. And if a commissioner doesn't want to approve any one of those 3 suggested motions, they can move to amend the motion. But right now the motion's been moved and seconded, so you should go ahead and take a vote on the motion.
Okay. So a vote will be taken by roll call. So Commissioner Winter.
Well, I guess if City Council doesn't like what we've advised them to recommended that they approve, then they will make their, seeing as they are a political body that they have different rules we may have, then they'll change it accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
So I will approve this in favor.
Okay. Commissioner Nye.
I vote in favor.
Commissioner Lawler.
I vote aye or yes on the motion.
Commissioner Adams.
I vote in favor.
And I vote aye as well. Motion passes unanimously. The Planning Commission's decisions will be memorialized in land use orders that will be provided to all parties that provided oral and written testimony. The Planning Commission's recommendation will be forwarded to City Council. Council will hold a hearing and make the final decision on this application. So with that, we are now adjourned at 8:19 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.